Hi, welcome to the Louie file. I wanted to continue on with this thought about self-examination for a bit. In I think it's 1 Corinthians 11, where Paul talks about communion, the Lord's Supper. There's a lot of thoughts on that. I think that I've always heard it to mean where it says examine yourself. The implication is that the Lord's Supper is before you, and we are to examine ourselves, implying, right, that there's sin or something in our life that needs to be dealt with before we drink the cup and eat the bread, or else we might end up sick or dead. I mean, that's what the way the text has been interpreted for a long time, and that's the way I think I looked at it for a long time. But I think that what the Apostle Paul is telling us here is that we are to eat and drink in a worthy manner, not meaning that we have sin or no sin in our life, but that we are recognizing the Lord's body. I believe the Corinthians were taking the Lord's Supper as a ritual, and it had become a ritual, so they were no longer really thinking about what they were doing. And Jesus said, you know, do this in remembrance of me. I mean, it's funny how Jesus instituted the bread and wine and said to do it in remembrance of Him, and yet somehow it got turned around, and the vast majority of people I know, Christians that take communion, make it about them. Like they got to examine themselves before they take it, and so it's totally taken the focus off of Jesus, where He said it should be. Do this in remembrance of me. He didn't say do this in remembrance of me as long as there's no known sin in your life, or after you confess everything, or after you dig around in self-examination and find anything that needs to be brought to the light. Now, obviously, if God is showing you something, then you need to get it dealt with. If it's with a fellow man or between you and God, I mean, I'm not saying don't get it dealt with, but to spend your time in self-examination for as means of progress of holiness or your walk, I don't believe that's what it's talking about. You know, I've known many people to walk out on communion services because they have felt unworthy, and they end up condemned, and they do not participate in the service. I don't think that's what Jesus meant at all, and I don't think that's what Paul meant when he said to examine yourself. He said to judge the body. So read that passage again with that in mind. Again, I think any of us could look into our own lives and we could say we could find darkness there if we went looking. But you know, I mean, that's sort of you can't really measure yourself by yourself, right? I mean, we need the Holy Spirit to show us if there is something there. So what we do is we invite Him to show us. We say, Lord, if there's anything in there that I need to know about, I'm trusting that you're going to show it to me. Believe me, He doesn't want it in there, probably more than even you and I want it in there. He's a holy God, so He's going to deal with anything in our life that is unholy, and we just got to learn to trust Him. So don't miss out on the communion. Don't miss out on what Jesus told us to do. So the next time you're involved in a communion service, do it in remembrance of Him, and don't get distracted and caught up in a spin of looking inward, trying to find some fault that you need to deal with, because I just don't think that's what that passage is all about. The next time we're going to go into, I think it's 2 Corinthians chapter 12 or 12 or 13, I'm not sure, I have to look. But there's another time when the Apostle Paul says, examine yourselves to see if you're in the faith, is what he told them. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what that means on the next video. So, all right, well, thanks for listening, and I'll see you then.